Okay, so Rachel pressure. First off, these are the settings you want for practicing your pressure. Have them standing, blocking everything, and enable block switching. That means that they're standing, they block everything, obviously, and they will switch their block, which means they'll switch from standing to crouching. And I think this actually, they can block unblockables with this too, or like high-low stuff, if you can do that with your character. But that aside, Rachel's pressure. So, Rachel's pressure is built around any jump cancelable normal. 5A, 5B, 6B sort of. 6B is less of a pressure tool and more of a neutral tool. It's jump cancelable and block, which is the important part, but it's not, you know, it pushes them pretty far away, and if you're somewhere like here, the IOH will whiff. Anyways, so what you do, there are several chunks to Rachel's pressure. So there's the instant overhead, which I messed up. There you go. There's 2B, the low, and then there's the fuzzy. That's what it looks like. So the Rachel's pressure all comes from recognizing when you get a 5B on block. Once you recognize that your opponent has blocked a 5B, it's 50-50. So you go low, you go overhead, and then from the overhead you can choose if you go fuzzy. Stuff like that. So let's see. So what's so good about this? This is a 13 frame overhead. I don't need to explain why that's good. It's really fast. Like, you know, you don't get much reward off of it. You end up getting sliding knockdown though, full screen, which in hindsight is a really good reward. You don't get much damage from it though, unless you're in the corner. Then you get like 3k, which still is kind of meh. But for a 13 frame overhead, yeah, that's real good. That's real good. It's not Jubei good, but it's real good. 2B. 2B is the low option. It's a much better starter because it's a B normal instead of an A normal. This used to be an overhead, and Rachel would do this, and she'd do like, if I remember correctly, you did JB, JA, or maybe it was just JB and it had enough hit stun to just kill people, but you did a lot of damage off JB. Anyways, so now what you want to do is you scare your opponent into blocking high, because this is a fast overhead. They can't react to it. That's scary. So against good players, they'll recognize the overhead, and when they block this, they'll be like, oh, well, Rachel has this instant overhead, and she's used it on me 5 times, and I'm still alive, so maybe I should just block high, because she's not going to go for anything else. And that's when you hit him with the low. So the low is really good, because in the corner, you get a lot more damage off of it. Right here. Boom, boom. Ivy Blossom. I did that too late. Oh, no, I didn't. But yeah, optimal. So you can perform her full optimal resource combo in the corner off of 2B. You cannot do it off of her instant overhead. It will, they'll tech out after 5cc the second or third time. So you do that route instead. Generally speaking, when I get the instant overhead route, in the corner, I go for meterless. So, you know, that's... Oops, my brain is just... That, you know, you do that instead of the metered route. Anyways, for pressure... Okay, so another kind of gimmicky thing you can do is you have to get used to timing this, but you can do instant overhead, micro dash throw. I mistimed the like that, but that's why you want to practice timing it. You have to kind of deep run, and then you can get throw combo stuff off of it, which is cool. Rachel's low-key a grappler. Her grab game is surprisingly strong. Yeah. Again, so you have to keep in mind that if, for whatever reason, your opponent is a god and they're instant blocking, there's a gap between JB, and 5B. Right there. And they can DP through it. But most people aren't going to do that. It's still something to be mindful of, and you can bait it if you recognize it. It's very hard to recognize. It's a very high level thing, but if you can do it and you bait it, it feels really good, and then you punish them for it with a 5C fatal or whatever mid-screen, and you go 5C and you place George, and it's like, oh, that's pretty sick. George isn't used in pressure like at all, by the way. He's a neutral tool and part of fatal punish combos. Okay, so pressure resets. There are there's one important pressure reset and one important like escape tool, I'll call it. So the escape tool I'm going to cover first because it's easy. Say you find yourself, you're out of wind, and you hit their block, you just IAD back out. So it's just that. It's really easy. You can do it off of 6B. Sometimes when I'm trying to escape, I do 5B, 6B, and then, or 5B, 5B, 5BB. It's literally the exact same. But you can throw Lobelia or not. It depends on how they react, because if they can react to this, some people will recognize that you're out of wind or you're low on wind, and they'll prepare for that. They'll be like, oh, he's gonna try and get out. She's gonna try and get away. So you can kind of trick people if you only have like, if you're missing some stocks, but you're not missing all your stocks. Some it's less likely that Rachel will go for that. I would not recommend doing something like, oops, like blah. I cannot do that input right now. There we go. I would not recommend doing something like that, even though it gets you wind back immediately, because you're really close to the opponent. You need to use it like somewhere up here. Even here, Beta Dude has scarred me because like I'll do this and throw this, and he'll run up and air throw me through that, and I'm like, why? How are you so good? But it's something to be mindful of. Also on the ground level, because characters have stuff like what's the input for? I think it's like this. Yeah. So like they can punish ground Tempest super easy with that. Like that. I mean, there's better examples, but yeah. Okay, as for the other pressure reset, this one's much more important, and it's easier to do in the corner. So you have a rod up, right? And you're doing stuff. So Sword Iris by itself is like +2, +3, something like that. But if you land cancel an air Sword Iris, it can be more plus. So simply put, you TK Sword Iris, that's like +16, +18, around there, if I remember properly. So you can do this off of jump cancelable things, go back in for another mix-up. You can also use that as a sort of pressure reset. You have to be very careful because depending on the spacing, this can be plus or minus. It can be at this range, it is punishable. At about this range, I think, it's like -4 or something. But further away, so like it hits at the very end, it's plus. So you can kind of go in and microdash 6B, kind of poke them if they try to push a button, microdash 5B, stuff like that. But yeah, Sword Iris is really good. TK Iris is crazy good and lets you get some stuff. So that's another thing. If you autopilot to 5C for whatever reason, you can go into 3C. And what's important about that is 3C is -2. So it's unpunishable, but it does end your turn. The upside of this is there's a really stupid frame trap you can do. Use this only once, by the way. Only once per person. Do not... I cannot stress this enough. It is super unsafe. It is super stupid. It is super gimmicky. And your opponent will just, like, physically reel back in their chair. Like, why did I get hit by that? I know because I've done it several times to people at locals, like good players, and no one ever reacts to it well because it's so stupid, but it works. It's just like doing doing something unsafe on block, then mashing DP. Except with Rachel, it's really easy. So, which, you know, mashing DP is easy, but it's even easier with Rachel because you do 3C and you mash 2C. It's not as good. It's a 7-frame gap, if I remember properly. But a lot of people see this move and they're like, oh, it's my turn. It's my turn, because Rachel is -2 on that. You know, I can get it, and that's really exciting because Rachel is a very hard character to really get in on, and her pressure lasts forever as long as she has resources, and her neutral is really good. So getting Rachel to block is very exciting for people. So they see this and they start mashing a button, and you just mash 2C and they get hit by that, and you convert with that or with this, and they feel stupid, and you're like, I'm the smartest person alive, and it's really stupid, and it works, and it shouldn't, but it does. But yeah, if I had to give you like a block string, it would be like instant overhead into low, into instant overhead into fuzzy or something. So that'd be like something like that. But really what you want to do is don't think about it as that true string, because if you do that string 100% of the time, the opponent's going to catch on and they're going to block it. So you need to think of it as 5B, and from 5B you go to the low, or 5B you go to the instant overhead, and then if you go into the instant overhead, you go into the fuzzy. And if you go into the instant overhead, when you land again, you know, microdash throw. Microdash throw is risky, and not a lot of people use it because Rachel has so many other good mix-up options, but you know, basic combo. But yeah, I mean, that's Rachel pressure. It's important to note one last thing, that like Lotus can be treated like Sword Iris, so you can TK Iris and neutral and stuff. If you have trouble with this, if your opponent is in block stun, you can also do jump forward, and that's actually better for pressure because you're more plus because you move towards the opponent. Well, you're not more plus, but you know, you're closer to the opponent, so it's easier to convert. So if you're having trouble with that, you just have to make sure you do it really close to the ground, because I don't like using that one, but like that, because if you get something like, yeah, that you'll get this a lot, or this a lot. Yeah, there you go. If you do it too late, I'm trying to do it and I keep messing it up, but you'll get that a lot. But yeah, that's pretty good.